Kyle Rittenhouse situation is coming to an end. Let's talk about it. A lot of stuff in the media that's crazy. A lot of arguments on both sides being made that some are not logical, some are silly. But let's talk about the Rittenhouse. Now that we know more facts of the case and we're closer to the trial, and what's changed since this evening of mayhem and burning down buildings and whatnot. Let's talk about it though.
Via coverage.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the armed teenage vigilante.
A 17-year-old vigilante, arguably a domestic terrorist, picked up a rifle, drove to a different state to shoot people.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a guy who's deeply racist, went with weapons to a Black Lives Matter protest looking to get in trouble. He did. He murdered a couple of people.
Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old kid, just running around, shooting and killing protesters.
You see the 17-year-old who was radicalized by Trumpism, took his AR-15 to Kenosha and became a killer.
A white, Trump-supporting, MAGA-loving, Blue Lives Matter social media partisan, 17 years old, picks up a gun, drives from one state to another with the intent to shoot people.
A 17-year-old boy who drove across state lines with an AR-15 and started shooting people up, including a guy with a skateboard.
So where do we begin? I feel like playing Warzone, but I'm not gonna play this and be able to pay attention. But thoughts on what's happening so far with the trial? A lot of new information that we didn't know. A lot of stuff that we always knew that the media still getting wrong. You know, people are still saying he brought a gun across state lines. That didn't happen. That's important, but that didn't happen because we know we've seen stories of black people doing that and they've gotten in trouble for it. But yeah, people harp on that. People harp on the whole he crossed state lines as if this man just flew from, you know, a different country or some shit, like he needed a passport to get in. Like that's a strong talking point for people who want to burn him at the stake or whatever. But it's not a valid point. Like, I live in Western New York. I live closer to the Canadian border than I do to Ohio or any other state. The closest thing is probably area PA. That's like an hour away from me. That's a little bit out the way, but I can be in Canada in less than 2 minutes, right? Like, I just don't understand the argument of he crossed the state lines. Like, he went somewhere that he knows people there. His dad lives there. He's worked there before. This is a common practice for him. This is not, you know, and people want to ignore that. The media's not going to say his dad lives there. They're not going to say he used to work there. They're not going to say he knows people there. But I think that would probably change the perception of some people, maybe not, because they saw what happened on the stand and their opinion didn't change after that. But that argument, the two, you know, he brought the gun across the lines. Again, people are still saying that even though it didn't happen. And I get it, like the polarization of why this case is being more seen publicly than the Ahmaud Arbery trial. Like, you would think that the liberal media would focus way more. I can understand why conservatives are on this side and covering it, but a lot of it is just responding to the hyperbolic stuff that you see on the left. You know, the president of the United States called this man a white supremacist and all that. All the pro-blackity blacks on YouTube are, you know, in that bag. I'm in a bunch of black gun groups, and I saw some of the dumbest comments of, man, you wanted to go out and smoke, then you should be ready to fight. Like, huh? So now because he went somewhere with a gun where other people there had guns as well, this is a black gun group, by the way. Now, like, well, he should have fought and he should have took the hits from the skateboard. Like, just a bunch of dumb shit that I'm just like, yo, when some shit to the fan, I'm not following you niggas. But just a lot of dumb shit I just heard. But I get why the right is doing it, and people are putting extra cap on what the right is doing. I get there are grifters and people who make money off this, the free Kyle t-shirts and all that, and that aspect of it. I get those grifters who do that. But I think most of what you see on the right is just to counter what's being said on the left. Like, they're literally saying stuff that's not true. Like, literally calling this dude things they have no evidence or proof of saying it. And it's weird, though, because, again, they could make those arguments just how the situation went down with Ahmaud Arbery in Atlanta. Like, they could have a better chance of getting that off, and you're not going to get too much pushback because people just don't know. This situation, we've seen the trial, we've heard the testimony, we know, and people are still saying wrong things and misinformation. Damn near every black person is up there talking about, burn him at the stake and he shouldn't have had it and scared of specific weapons. It's just like, come on. And I get it too, like the whole, he used the AR-15, even though most gun crimes are committed with pistols. That's a hot button topic. That's why the left is going to be over there, and they're going to jump on that bandwagon of that conversation as well. Calling him the bitch on The View with the fake nose, Sonny. Talking about school shooter vibes or whatever and stuff like that. I'm just like, well, if he wanted to be a school shooter, he could have did that. Like, he could have shot more people. He had other magazines. I think he had 26 bullets left in that magazine, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he could have done that if he wanted to do that. He didn't have to give up. He could have shot more of the people who were chasing him than the 3 that got hit. Yeah. But I just think I do say that if anything, it would be the gun charge that he gets hit on. He's not gonna get hit for murder. Some people think that because one chick on Facebook was like, you can't claim self-defense if you're not supposed to be there. Well, first of all, nobody should have been there, dear. It was a curfew. Nobody should have been there. Like, everybody's supposed to be in the house, so I don't get that argument. He had a legal gun. Yes, he had a gun that he obtained illegally. However, the individual who had pointed the gun at him and got shot in the arm, he was a felon, and he had a gun that wasn't supposed to be used legally, and the prosecution didn't want to hold it against him. How does that work? How do you break the law, someone else breaks the law, they make a deal with you because you're going to testify against them? But I did the same thing, essentially. But I do think, if anything, it should be the gun charge, which is a misdemeanor, and it's only 9 months in their state. But I've been watching mad videos of like 12-year-olds, 9-year-olds. Like, at the youngest was 9, some little fat white kid. He grabbed his dad 9 and used it in a home robbery defense. I'll link that video. It's funny as hell. Dude was like, the dude was funny as hell. But like, somebody tried to break in his house. Clearly he was home alone, obviously, which I'm assuming that's against the law. And he used his parents' gun, which he's definitely not old enough to get. But nothing happened to him in that case. All these stories of teenagers using their parents' 9 gun pistols and rifles. Now again, that's the confusion in the law. That law doesn't specify if it's towards rifles or if it's towards just pistols and handguns. And that's what I'm saying. He could possibly beat the gun charge too, because it's like a dad takes his kid hunting. Like, I just looked up the thing on New York to see if it's too late to get the hunt license. I might as well just get it over with, $20, whatever. But it said that it starts at 11 years old in New York. So 11-year-old can have a license to go hunting. I'm sure he's going to use his dad's rifle to pull the trigger to shoot the gun, but he's not legally old enough to own it or have it his own. And we know damn well a bunch of these dudes, they get guns before they're supposed to get them. The parents have hold of them or whatever, but when they're 18 years old, they have rifles all the time. So, and especially living out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, that's like part of the culture. So it's like, it's just weird listening to some of the arguments, and we know damn well these people got it. To me, it's like, regardless of the race situation, I think Greg Gutfeld said it. He's like, it don't matter what race or whoever, we're on the side of the Second Amendment. So that's when that comes in, where it's like, well, what about the people who don't have a right to have a gun? We all hear black people say, I'd rather be caught with it than without it, right? There's a lot of folks that got felonies or whatever, and they can't have guns in their house. Remember the football player, I forgot his name, he got killed in the house, he went back home to Florida, number 24, and he, part of his probation was he couldn't have a gun in the house because he did some dumb shit with a gun, and Florida busting off and doing some dumb shit, instead of going to jail like he should have, he got a plea deal and he was able not to go to jail. But part of that probation period, he couldn't be around guns for, I think, 2 years or some shit like that, which left his house defensive and vulnerable, his wife and his kid. And he luckily went home that weekend. He wasn't supposed to be home. So I don't know if it was a bye week or something, but his coach let him go home to be with his family because his wife was pregnant at the time, or his girlfriend. And the bunch of little punks came in the house and he's dead. And he didn't have any weapons in his house to defend himself. So it's like, there's people who will not be in that situation. They'll say, okay, I'll take my gun charge, but you can't charge me with the murders. That's a possibility. You can be charged with breaking the law if the prosecution wants to charge you with it, right? It's up to them, their discretion. And you won't be charged for the murders. And the whole premise is if you instigate the murders, right? So if you have an illegal gun, you're in a situation where you shouldn't be, you instigate the problems, yeah, then that's different. You don't get the call self-defense if you instigate it. But if you didn't, which is clearly seen between the chasing him having to turn around and shoot behind him, the dude who admitted on the stand like an idiot that he didn't shoot at him until he pointed his gun, but then he goes on Anderson Cooper and other shows and say, well, the lawyer tricked me. Like, nah, dog, he actually did. He shoot at you until it was pretty plain language. It wasn't a bunch of legal jargon that lawyers do to mess you up in the head. It was pretty plain. Like, you lied the first time. Then you said, oh, wait a minute. Nah, I didn't shoot at him. He didn't shoot at me until I pointed my gun at him, which that's a no-no. You don't point guns at people. Kyle didn't even have the gun in his right arm, and he's right-handed to shoot until it was go time. But I think that some folks are pointing out the people who are backing him and all that. But every commentator I've watched on Fox, because I watched them, they're not doing what the liberal media trying to make him this hero, this whatever, and pump him up. The grifters are monetizing it and getting paid off of it. But most of the people I've seen said, like, yo, this isn't about him. This is about justice. This is really about the ability to use self-defense. Because that's what it boils down to. It's like, that's what's on trial here. This might set precedent for people who use guns in situations like that. Think about though, when the pandemic hit, how many people's asking for guns because they don't know the process, or they were around people with guns, and we'll say something happened to them and they go down and they pick up their friends' guns or whatever. Like, all that stuff is like, you know, possibly being brought out right here. Like, this is going to be probably case law, possibly. And you could tell that the liberal media is already getting ready to, you know, because they got to. It's like weird how, like, Anna, the chick from Young Turk, she's the only one I've seen who, like, actually said, "Oh, my bad, I was wrong. I thought he was the aggressor," which I'm sure her boss didn't like it, due to sent bitch ass. But like, none of the MSNBCs and CNNs, like, none of them are retracting anything they said. So I'm not mad at those who overhype and put cap on what he did versus the people who are completely lying and defaming him. Which, to me, if he beats his case, he definitely has a lawsuit. If CNN, the little kid who was at sued CNN and got paid, the Covington kid, for them lying on him the same way they're doing this kid, he's got to have a case. When the president of the United States comes out and doesn't know the facts of the case, he just says something, you would think that he would, after what happened to Obama, they learned him on that one. And once Obama did the Skip Gates thing and came with the cops, he ain't ever do that again. You know, after that happens, that's when. But Joe Biden's white, so I guess he's gonna get a pass for doing it. It doesn't hurt him to be honest and say what he really, what you're supposed to say when you don't know all the facts or the evidence of the case, not just repeating what you see or what. No, again, I mean, that maybe that's what black people got for voting for him and these record numbers, is he gave you some more symbolic nonsense or whatever. But oh man, I'm at 11. That's basically what my thoughts is. I think that there's cap on both sides, but I think the cap from the right, part of it is monetary, people monetizing the situation, which will always be a thing now because everything's so polarized and everything's so political. So I'm not mad at that. Like, I don't think people really believe he's a hero or anything like that. They're just saying that shit because they know it triggers and trolls the left and it gets them in their feelings. And then the left is probably also making them a bigger person. He did take pictures with the one group dudes, the Gavin McInnes boys, and then he, you know, Blue Lives Matter, all that type of stuff. Probably was going to be a future cop or whatever. But he has no ties to Trump. But again, just this, we're going to throw him all in his boat and tie with a boat. Like, life is a little bit more complex than that. Like, it ain't just we just see little elements of something and say, he's a white supremacist and he's a Trump supporter and he's this and he's that. Like, it's like weird how black people don't like when we get put in those boxes like that. We don't like being labeled like that, but we sure have no problem doing that shit, which is mind-boggling. Why not just be objective, look at the facts of the case, and then form an opinion, instead of repeating the same shit you hear on CNN? People comparing it to the Trayvon situation. I'm like, technically, Jared Zimmerman is on call with the 911 dispatch, which they're not police, but they're dispatch. They told him not to pursue. So, based on that information, if Zimmerman would have came out in another situation, or if he would have got his gun and shot him, he should have got off. Based on the fact that he shouldn't have chased him. He was told to not pursue him. But we do this whataboutism. We compare cases out of the context, none of the similarities and whatever. Are we gonna act like it's not a difference in a way things happen when young black men have guns? Obviously, we saw what happened to Tamir Rice, which was a live, active call. We saw what happened, you know, where people have guns and they're black. I'm not gonna ever make that argument that there's not differences, but we should still be addressing the application of the law. That's the problem. We need the same judgment that white people have when it comes to being normalized with a gun, and that's the mind fuckery. Is like most the blacks are pushing against the idea of him having that gun. They push against the idea of boys dressing up with the gear and all that, going in the woods. Like there's hundreds of thousands of videos and hours of white boys on YouTube doing just that, and I'm just the ones who show you how many do you think of is out in the middle of nowhere that's off the grid, that's just waiting for shit to happen on Purge, the last Purge movie. The thing about that movie too is like, which definitely stars up racial tension, is like you would really have to have majority of the country in on that for that to even pop off. Like that movie was just stupid. It didn't have to have it virtual signaling by having it like America was burnt down and we had to run to Mexico to be saved to go across the border. That shit is hilarious. But I think that we do need to normalize black gun ownership and black men in gear and looking like, you know, fuck around and find out, dude, he messed up, but keep it going. Somebody didn't step up and be the leader of that again. Like, just stop bringing the paintball vest and don't be bringing 22s out there. Like, that's not a good look. But but yeah, we do need to normalize the gun, even though black gun ownership is up. Again, the only time the media wants to talk about black gun ownership is in the context of tiki towards white boys or whatever. But the reality is, we all know if these black women who are getting guns like crazy and they're getting training, they're not getting it for tiki towards white boys. They're getting it for Pookies and Ray Ray. They're getting it for a situation that happened in New York City where live a girl was raped on a train and nobody did nothing. That's what they're getting guns for. They're getting guns because they saw what happened. Look at what happened in Chicago. There was damn near a race war. Lori Lightfoot shut down the city, and so she made sure she protected downtown, the white area. Bridges went up, borders were put in the street, so you couldn't even get down there. And then what happened when after we let our white liberal friends burn down our shit, we tried to go to the Hispanic community, and they was like, "Nah, you're not coming over here." Unfortunately, that wasn't just the looters and the rioters, but that was people, grandmoms and aunties and them trying to get their medicine from Rite Aid and shit. They was like, "Nah, you're not coming over here." That's a problem. So, I don't know, like, just between the gun situation, that's obviously why the left is trying to be on it and overhype it. Because again, I'm not, like, it does, like, the Arbery trial, you can do all this extraness that you're doing for Rittenhouse. You can literally do it, and it's going to be less pushback, because the right don't even want to touch it, really. Other than the point, I don't believe the brother was jogging in Tim's in hot. No, I don't believe he was jogging. I'm sure he wasn't jogging, but I'm sure he didn't steal anything either, because he didn't have anything on him when he left the house. But those dudes did go above and beyond. Those dudes did play rent-a-cop. And one thing is weird too. People keep saying they're calling him a vigilante or whatever, but I'm like, you do recognize that. I know everybody's speaking against the idea of doing that, but you got to put the context in of the police aren't there. Like, imagine if you were in that autonomous zone in Portland, like, all shit broke loose in there. Like, the police were not coming. You had to be a vigilante in that situation. You had to protect your businesses and your family, because the cops weren't coming. They weren't letting the cops in. Like, a vigilante, in the definition, it says it in there. Like, you know, this is only when people do go above and beyond and take the law into their own hand, because they feel that the law enforcement is inadequate and not coming. Does that sound familiar to you? The black community? Who else needs more than anything to be vigilantes in their communities and stop these senseless killings and murders, and little girls be getting killed on their bike, and the old dude that was in World War II survived all that bullshit, but he can't, you know, survive sitting on his porch on a Sunday because Pookies and Ravens want to shoot up everything and not hit the people supposed to hit. So I'm saying, like, I think that we need to look at it from that angle too, of just being able to be a vigilante, go out in your community and protect your streets. Because if we're setting a precedent where you can't even do that, even if it is yours, people make the argument that it's not his stuff or these buildings aren't insured. who wants to go through all that bullshit though? Like, if you could stop your house from burning down, you're gonna try to stop it from burning down. If you could stop a place that you utilize and you know what it does for the community, you're gonna attempt to do it. Obviously, no one thinks, oh, I'm just let it go. Like my man Mace Jackson just got robbed for his car. Shout out to him in Chicago by a white dude. He caught you slipping, dog. No, I don't even think he had a gun either. But like he said, like in his mind, your mind is to just let the keys go. You just let them have it. You can get a new car, but in the moment he fought back. Like he tried to get his car. That's just human nature, or whatever. Like people are gonna fight for some shit or defend shit. This idea of it's just property, I think that black folks need to let that shit go. Because I don't even look at it that way. Like I look at when people steal from you and they break into your shit and they mess with your stuff, I look at that as time, which you can't get back either. People say you can't get back a life; it's always gone. Well, you shouldn't be trying to take people's shit. Like, or people make an argument he should just be able to hit you with a skateboard and you should just take the hit or fight back. Like, no, I'm going to shoot you. I have an AR-15. Why are you chasing me? That's like the argument of a chick being 110 pounds, 5 feet, and she's swinging on a dude that's 6'8", and we're like, he should restrain himself. I'm like, okay, he could, but he might not. Why are you chasing somebody with an AR-15? Like, you do know he got 30 bullets in that gun, right? You know, like there's no logic in that at all. And there was a black dude that did swing on him, but the black dude didn't even get hit. He once he seen him getting himself back, he ran off. That I'm sure the media would have loved if that was the case, because they could have push more of the racial narratives. There's literally these little blue checks on Twitter saying, yo, my little progressive bubble ain't even telling me there ain't no black people hurt in the making of this movie. It's people just they don't even realize that there was no black people hurt. It's people don't even realize the criminal records of all these people, how the one dude was nuts. And he's one of them people that probably don't care about Black Lives Matter. He's just a dude that's wild and got shit going on, and he's willing to go jump on bandwagons just to go tear some shit up. But for whatever reason, black people have inducted him into, you know, he invited to the cookout now, even though he's dead. He fucked around and found out. He said, shoot me then, and he got shot. Don't grab a barrel for somebody's gun. Like, don't do that. Like, that's just things you just don't do. Go the opposite direction. You don't have to chase that man if he didn't shoot anybody. And people were making an argument too about, like, they thought that it was an active shooter or whatever. But in that situation, it's like a stalemate. So he could have been fighting for his life, and they could have thought he was an active shooter. But it's like, there's no wrong in that situation. But if you are wrong and that person wasn't the active shooter and you do something to them, that could possibly call back on you. Your intent was not murder. Your intent was not to kill them that way. But there is some negligence in that. That's why you should, you know, when something happens, you don't just run up in there, Captain Save-A-Hole, trying to shoot everything up. You need to assess the situation and know what you're doing. That's the risk every gun owner takes. Every concealed permit person thinks about that. Should I interact? Should I not interact? When the cops come in, they're gonna shoot my black ass or not? Like, those are things that you have to acknowledge is gonna be a thing, right? But that's most of my video. I think he should get off and beat the case. They're gonna go for a lower charge. I think he could possibly beat the gun case just for the simple fact that there's too many examples of young people, little kids using guns that they're not supposed to have to defend their house and their family, and there's never no charges brought up. We've seen situations where people use illegal guns and like that they had in the house or whatever. But I'm seeing video after video of little ass kids, videos from a few years ago, which you would never go viral, and the media would never pick them up and promote and show this shit. All right, I still got to address Whippy dumbass talking about her solution to fixing the gun problem is just basically die. Like, just die. Like, literally, I'm not sure if they covered the raping in New York. I'm pretty sure they're trying to avoid addressing all this crazy crime in New York, and it's getting worse because the new people decided they want to close 6 more prisons in New York. Like, the crime is going up because of the bail reform thing. Criminals are getting to run around before trial and stay out of jail. And you've had witnesses get killed that was supposed to testify, because now there's a new law too where you have to have their name. So it's like all types of crazy shit, and it's like it's no correction, there's no pause. They just like letting shit go crazy. Eric Adams said he about to go back though, so it's like, man, I know COs is getting kind of wary because they got to move around again. They already closed 2 near me, and they about to close some more smaller ones or whatever. And then Rikers has issues, so there needs to be some reform in there, and something needs to happen. And I guess one of the federal prisons, the COs got caught doing some shit. So it's not like, despite you saying like, no, like we can't just be having people run around that's got murder charges and they can go address their witnesses and accusers, but there's corruption inside that system too, so it needs to be addressed as well. So it's like, damn. But let's see what Eric Adams does in New York with his tough on crime attitude. It's gonna be a black dude in charge of this now. Finally, let's see what he do. He's already been getting threats from people from the Black Lives Matter movement, so we'll see what happens with that too. But yeah, that's just my video. Rittenhouse, I think he should be free. I think the left is double, triple, quadruple downing on the whole evil white kid, school shooter, racist, white supremacist. Well, none of that shit is true. There's no evidence of any of that stuff, and we're still double downing on that. And for me, again, it's not even about defending him. It's about defending the right to self-defense. Like, you don't lose your right to self-defense because you were somewhere you shouldn't be. If someone breaks into, say a couple is together, the wife has the ability to have a gun, but the husband doesn't. In New York, you're not supposed to touch someone else's gun. You can't even go to the gun range. You can't even touch them, whatever, if you don't have a permit. But do you get to, if say something happens to them and you pick up their gun and use it to save the day, do you still go to jail? Do you want that person to be charged? Like, I think he could beat the gun charge too, just on the simple fact that a 16-year-old can go hunting with their dad, and he can. I mean, not a 17-year-old can be hunting with their dad in that state and use the gun. He might beat the gun charge too. I don't know. And then people going in on the judge too, though. The judge called the prosecution out twice because the prosecution did some dumb shit. Everybody has a right to remain silent. You also have a right to an attorney. And he tried to make these arguments towards the jury, which were dumb. I don't even know why he would do those things, because those are in the Constitution. You have a right to remain silent. Rittenhouse didn't have to say anything. And one of the reporters who gave the video footage, he got legal counsel before, obviously because he's a reporter and he wants to be protected. Like, he doesn't want to say anything to commit himself or anything. Even when he was going on other shows and talking about it, he didn't say anything because I'm sure his lawyer told him, don't say shit. So I'm like, again, like, I don't know what's up with the prosecution. They bombed their case by their star witness saying, yeah, he didn't shoot at me until I pointed the gun at him. That's what's on trial. Him not supposed to be there is not relevant. His mom driving him or not relevant. None of that shit is relevant. Did he initiate the situation while he was there? No, it didn't. It doesn't appear that way from the video footage from the FBI. It doesn't appear that way from the testimony of the dude who got shot in the arm. That's all that matters in the case. None of the other shit is even relevant to the case. No one should have been there. It's a fucking riot and all hell was breaking loose. City was burning down. Nobody should be there. And I'm thinking, like, May Jackson even said it in his program, because he's going with the typical nigga crap logic of white supremacists. He's training to do this. And if you really believe that, though, like, you really believe a 17-year-old kid is going to the woods and he's practicing white supremacy, waiting to take over, and Trump, blah, 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 the whole narrative, what are you teaching your 17-year-old son? If you really believe that, and this is a guy who just got robbed by a white dude, caught you slipping. If you believe that, are you teaching your son the same things? Like, because if I believe that, I would respond to it and act on that as well. I would have my son learning how to shoot those same weapons and be able to do cartwheels and flips in the street and be proficient, despite the dude who's in Sarge's comment section, and only hit my target while I'm being chased and my adrenaline's high and everything's going crazy. If you're not teaching your sons how to do that, then shut up then, because there's no point. You're just being hyperbolic for no reason. Like, all the extra cap, like, his whole take to me was wrong. Just, first it was, oh, he just mad because the black dudes banging the white girls, and like, that was one argument, and then it jumped to the white. Like, I was like, yo, we gotta be more logical than that, right? Like, you don't have to put the cap on it the way some people on the right who are monetizing it are, but just be in the middle. Most people are saying he's not a hero, he's not this, he shouldn't have been there. But in the case of self-defense, I would rather spend more time pointing out the lies in the media, because if they're doing this to him if the FBI is leaking Veritas paperwork, if you see all these white men getting destroyed between big tech, the government, and the media, niggas ain't got no chance. If all of these dudes are getting exposed and getting shit leaked and having their livelihoods affected with lies, I'm not even saying the stuff that's true, but with the lies, black folks have no chance in this country between being censored and silenced and the media having the FBI attack you. Like, we have zero chance if they doing this shit to white dudes with impunity. How many black media outlets are gonna say that that whole Russia collusion shit was bullshit? How many that talked about it, that keep repeating it, that keep saying it, are gonna say what really happened? It was all bullshit. Hillary Clinton's lawyer's in jail because it was bullshit. One of the dudes who lied to the informant dude, he's in jail too. Like, how many black media outlets is gonna actually say that and point that out? None of them. We're gonna just keep repeating the bullshit.
Mr. Rosenbaum never says a word, correct?